BT's Body and Balance is sponsored by Canada Diagnostic Centres, offering private MRI and CT appointments in as little as 1 to 2 days. Visit canadadiagnostics.ca.
This weekend, we're all looking forward to it. It's the May long weekend, but a trip can get pretty complicated in a hurry when your child suffers from motion sickness. Our health specialist, Leah Sarich, is here with what you can do to help your child feel well on the journey. And I said this to Andy before. I was that kid.
This was you.
Oh. All the time.
And isn't that hard? I mean, it's hard for
worst.
everybody, right? It doesn't make the trip any fun, so that's no good. So we've got a few tips for you. So I spoke with pediatrician Dr. Peter Neiman about this, and he says, first of all, we need to understand what motion sickness is. So first off, it's basically a confused brain. So your brain doesn't really know what's happening.
Oh, well, that's clear then. Now I know why
He basically says, so it's getting the wrong input, right? So it's getting the wrong input from your eyes, from your middle ear, from your muscles, and from your ligaments. So it's getting the wrong input. It's all confused. And so, of course, you're going to see those symptoms that we're all rather familiar with. The kid starts to turn pale, then a little bead of sweat, and then we've got the dizziness.
Sick, honestly, just talking about this.
Nausea, vomiting, etc. Yes. So you know it. So what we want to do is try to avoid these symptoms. But the other thing he raises as well is that, you know, a lot of kids may not actually be able to articulate when and how often they're feeling unwell in these trips. They might just start crying and being fussy, and you don't really know what's going on. It could very easily be motion sickness. So he said, do keep that in mind. But he said the first thing you need to do is basically control what the child is doing and where they're positioned.
It's very important not to read in the car. It's very, very important. Or play video games, you know, especially because of handheld devices. Kids are so attracted to it. And you almost have to say, no, you can't use it while the car's moving. Look through the window. And then also face forward. And so let's say people take a train, for example, where you can, or a bus, and you get a rear-facing seat. That is a seat you should avoid. Sit in a seat that faces forward. If you fly on a plane, sit by the wings. There's less turbulence.
Good information, right?
Yes, very.
He says you can even apply that to the school bus. So if your kid gets sick on the way to school, keep them in the middle of the bus, not at the back.
Absolutely.
For sure. So you also want to avoid greasy foods or anything like that that might upset the tummy beforehand. And he says you really want to try all this first before you go down the medicine route.
Right.
There are lots of medicines, and we'll talk about that. But he says, you know, there's even some things you can start off with first, natural methods that you can try first, and that's a good place to start.
I would recommend ginger. There is some evidence, not very good, but try it. What can you lose? You know, a bit of ginger, good idea. The other thing that you can try is Dramamine. It's basically an antihistamine that may work. And then if all else fails, and maybe people go on longer trips, they've tried everything, nothing works, you can get a patch that you put on the child's skin. It's called scopolamine. Just a patch of a medication that gets released over time. And that may actually help to tone things down a little bit.
And of course, there's the Gravol option as well. And I actually probed him a little bit further on this whole ginger thing. I'm like, how do you get ginger in a little kid? He's like, you know what they can do at any natural health stores? Just get a little pill. Right. Give it to them, swallow it. They won't even know they're taking it. So that's a good thing to try for sure. So of course, there's the Gravol as well. But the big thing, he said, make sure that you try these medicines out on your kid before that first trip in the car, because they can often have the exact opposite effect that you're looking for.
They can. And I know that firsthand. We gave Gravol to my daughter when we flew to France, and she was the only child awake on the entire flight.
Oh no.
Like really out there.
Right.
Yes.
So try it ahead of time. Make sure that your child reacts accordingly, right? Wonderful. Now, there is a little bit of good news here. He says often many kids will actually grow out of their motion sickness. He said so it'll probably get better as they get older. And the other really neat tidbit that he gave me, which I was kind of curious about, is that children that had motion sickness often grow up to be adults that have migraines. Isn't that interesting? So there's a link there. They're still investigating it, but he says this is a new area of research, so we'll have to follow that.
Did he say anything about heredity? Because I am hoping that my daughter does not inherit what we...
It does have a tendency to run in families, but it doesn't have to.
And hopefully it will. More information on your blog, as always.
As always.
breakfasttelevision.ca.